Okay. Agile is an iterative approach to project management and software development that helps team deliver value to their customer faster and with fewer headaches. Iterative means part by part.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Add to it. This was too simple. So add a little bit to it in the future. But thank you. Who else? I think Mamun is having trouble with his laptop. Um, Afjal, you want to try?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, sure. Mhm. Agile is an iterative development methodology where we break down projects pieces and make parts little by little. We make a small part deployment and test it and make it potential. The stakeholder is active in the entire process of deployment and they can easily change the requirement also. In Agile, it is a collaborative effort where the entire team works in small 2 weeks sprint cycle. Thank you.
Thanks, Afjal. Okay, guys, thank you, everyone. I started recording the session so everyone will have it handy. So it's very crucial for everyone to understand Agile. So we'll try to explain, and Agile is not the best subject to explain, and I sometimes get headache try to wrap my head around Agile. So we'll try our best. Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah,
Yes.
Kadir bhai, before you move on, can I just add something to it?
Yes, please.
So just as for like future reference or something, let's say you are interviewer, you're going to ask me a question, and your question is what is agile, right?
Mm.
So when do I define it? I obviously define as much you were asking, like what is agile is. Then
Mm.
if I tell you what the differences with the question you just asked was the agile does what waterfall does. Do you think is kind of too much than more like what you just asked? Like if I add all those things, like even though you didn't ask me.
No, you have to know there is so many. When you go to interview, obviously you guys are not to that level. You have to understand what they're asking, what you should deliver, and how much time you should take on each topic, right?
Right.
So with the experience, you will get there, because if you want to explain agile, you could literally spend half an hour explaining agile. Now, if you do that to your interview, do you think you're going to get a job? I doubt it, because they want to know you know more than agile. Agile is not the only thing in the software development, right? So hang in there. By end of the course you probably have better understanding, and we only went over 10% of agile. We still need to do a lot more, and once you have the full package in front of you, you will be able to know what to explain, what not to explain when it comes to agile. But you have to give them enough understanding of agile, enough descriptions, enough materials that then they're convinced that you understand. So we have a interview process in place. So eventually we'll get there, and you will also know like what to answer, what not to answer. At this point, it's going to be tough to break it down for you. But let's complete it, and then we'll have better understanding. Does it work, brother?
Yeah.
Also, Kadir, I'd like to add something there.
Yeah.
The interviewer is going to be focusing on the keywords. So, guys, remember the keywords. Every topic has keywords. If you say those keywords, you're good. So make sure you write those keywords.
Yeah, and the other thing is like, please take notes. I don't want to repeat it every day, but please take notes. Are you guys seeing two screen agile and waterfall, or you're only seeing the agile diagram?
Only agile.
Okay, so I need to change my sharing mode. Okay. So before we understand agile, we have to know that we have to differentiate. We have to be able to differentiate agile and waterfall. And I believe by now you guys are able to do that. I believe you guys can do that because we've been talking about it a lot. Two screens now, right?
Yes.
Okay, is it clear or do I need to zoom in anything?
You can zoom in a little more
Okay.
on the agile.
Okay, guys. So understand in waterfall we talked about requirement, we talked about client, we talked about um, different things. But when it comes to agile, um, does anyone know what is requirement in agile? The wording is very different, guys. Agile we don't call requirement. Requirements are called user stories in agile. And within the user story there are different type of user stories. There is one called epic, one is story point. So the requirement is essential for everybody to understand, right? So in agile, stories are requirement. Just remember that. And within that user story there are epics are the big one. Let me just explain to you. When it comes to epic, I think we talked, let me show you. um wasn't this the application? Yeah. So this is the application that we were displaying the other day, right? So if I log into this application, okay, so this is the landing page, right? So that landing page would be an epic. Why landing page is an epic? Because under the landing page there are so many different requirement, right? And each different button that you are seeing is going to be a story point. So just remember that epic is the whole thing is a bigger requirement. Story point are the smaller. Breakdown of that epic is the story point. Remember that. So that's one difference. Requirement is in agile we call it story point, is not requirement. Let's see what other differences that I can point out. Okay, the client in agile, I think Tamid was writing back to someone. We don't call client in agile. The clients are either stakeholder. What is another word, Tamid? Stakeholder or end user. That's another word they use. So that they do not use the same terminology as waterfall. That's the another huge difference. Okay, anything else here? No. Okay. So if we understand this too, let's move on. Okay, remember guys, I ask you guys to take note of the keywords from the videos that you watched. There were two videos that you watched for the agile in 10 minutes, and there was another one, agile in 7 minutes. So these are the main keywords that I was able to find. There is one called Scrum. There is another one is product owners, Scrum master, developers, testers, user story, product backlog, sprint, burn down chart, estimates, daily Scrum, sprint planning meeting, sprint retro meeting. These are the main keywords. So let's go over one by one. Scrum. What is Scrum? Scrum is a workflow, a framework, a model that everybody follows within that construction iteration. Within that construction iteration, there is a team sitting there. Usually, um, agile team consists of 7 or 9 or 11 people. Usually 7 people, standard 7 people, but it could vary. So within that, there would be, let's say, 4 developers, or could be 3 developers and 2 QA, or 4 developers, 2 QAs, and a Scrum Master, BA. So Scrum Master is the person who is like a project manager in, if we talk about waterfall. You guys gonna get confused, ready to get confused, but we have to go through this. And once we're done with this, you have to watch the video a couple of times, then it's going to be clear. I still do get confused sometimes, even though I worked in Agile, still working in Agile. Anyway, so the team, I have it here somewhere. I'm going to show it to you. So the team is, let's say, 3 developers, 2 QA. That's 5 people, right? There's going to be a Scrum Master and a business analyst, 6, 7 people. So Scrum Master is someone who is responsible for this team. That could be an individual person just doing Scrum Master job, or that could be a senior developer who is working in this team, or business analyst could have 2 titles, right? So it depends. But for your understanding, there is a Scrum Master, separate Scrum Master. There are developers, there are QA, there are dev, and I think I missed the very important person, and I'm surprised nobody was able to point it out. The stakeholder, the end user, the stakeholder is going to be there throughout, as you can see in the diagram. So I hope Scrum is clear. So Scrum, everybody works in Scrum right now. Agile is a framework. Within that Agile framework, there is a small framework which is Scrum. Within this construction iteration, there is a team sitting there and they're working together, and that is nothing but Scrum. We're going to talk about Scrum a little bit details in a few. So after the Scrum, product owner. Who is product owner? Product owner is client. In if you refer to the waterfall diagram, we talked about client, we talked about business owner. So in here, we're gonna say product owner. And Agile, clients are product owner. Scrum Master, I just talked about. Project Manager is Scrum Master. Developers, QA, User stories, I talked about user stories. User stories are nothing but the requirement, right? I talked about this. Product backlog. So let's talk about what is product backlog. So product backlog is collection of user story. Usually this is where all the user stories are saved. So product backlog is a backlog where all the user stories, what is user stories? User stories are requirement, right? All the requirements are written. So it could be here, I can show you, these are my requirement, right? This is nothing but the product backlog. So usually stored in a tool. It could be a Jira tool, it could be Excel like this, or it could be TFS or anything else. Those are the tool. Those who don't know about this tool, don't worry about it. This is nothing but a dashboard which organize the work. Like, just if you look at this right here, this is organized, but this is in Excel, right? I cannot move my user stories. Let's say I'm working on user story point USP 001, user story point 001. Let's say I'm working on this one and I completed it. How do I move this from here? This is, let's say this was like in progress and I completed it and I need to move it to completed status. In Excel, I cannot do that, right? So I need a better tool. So Jira is a good tool, or TFS or some other tools. They allow you to move your work, different statuses, you can move it. We'll learn it later. But for your understanding, for you to understand what is product backlog is all the individual user stories. And what is user stories? User stories, nothing but requirement, right? Each requirement written in an organized form. That's nothing but the product backlog. And that's when you talk about product backlog, like, what is product? Product is nothing but the application. So we go back to the application. And in the last class, I told you guys what are the requirements, right? Everything you see is requirement. If I click on book, I mean, this whole thing is requirement. Within that, there are multiple requirements, like every fields that you see, everything written in here, every pictures, every logos you see, it's nothing but requirement, right? So everything has to have its own user story, right? This is nothing but a story point. So, okay. So after that, uh, sprint, sprint backlog or release. Let's just say sprint backlog. Let's not confuse people. Sprint backlog. So product backlog is the um, entire story point, meaning this product backlog has a requirement of entire application. As if you're working in a waterfall, you have your entire requirement written right prior to it. Similarly here, you have all of your requirement written under product backlog. Now, what is sprint backlog? Here we're talking about a sprint backlog. Sprint backlog is what list of tasks identified by the Scrum team to complete it during the Scrum sprint. Okay, let's simplify this, right? What is sprint backlog? Like we talked about, like in Agile, we work in iteration. Let's say iteration could be 2 weeks or 3 weeks. For that 3 weeks or 2 weeks, let's say 2 weeks. For that 2 weeks, you're gonna pick some of this work. Let's say you're gonna talk as a team. You're gonna talk about, like, we have 2 weeks of sprint. Within that sprint, we can only complete this 18 story points. So from the product backlog, you are gonna take this 18 story point and you're going to move it to your sprint. So this is, notice there is a sprint dashboard here, right? So look here, we have a sprint 1, sprint 2, sprint 3, sprint 4. What are these sprint? It's nothing but this story point. This is where you see entire story point, but here in sprint we're breaking it down like we talk about in Agile. We're going to break it down, right? We are not going to make the entire application at once. We're going to make it in iterations. So iteration 1, we're going to make this part of it. Then iteration 2, we're going to make this part of it. Iteration 3, we're going to do this. Iteration 4, we're going to do this. So sprint is nothing but an iteration. For that iteration, we will pick the amount of work that we could complete. So that's nothing but the sprint. Okay, burn down chart. What is burn down chart? So burn down chart, let's say for the sprint, right? For the same sprint, you are going to create a burn down chart. For that burn down chart, you're going to start from the top. So this is your this is day 1. You pick 30 story point, 30 requirement to complete, right? You start from the top because you know day 1 or day 0, let's say you started today, so ideally you're in day 1, right? So we started with 30 story point. As you move along, right, next day you completing some. Look, you're completing your well, you're the red one, right? So ideally you should be in green. So by the time you hit your sprint, which is the 20th day, like these numbers are not accurate because this is just an example, right? So here, if it's 20th day, so you have like 4 weeks of sprint, right? Within that 4 week, your expectation is to complete this 30 story point. And if you're behind, your chart is going to show you you're behind. If you're ahead of the game, it's going to show you you're ahead of the game. So this is nothing but the burn down chart. It shows you the progress of your work for the specific sprint. So these are the concept, you have to understand for Agile. Estimation. What is estimation? Let's talk about estimation. What is estimation? Estimation is nothing but giving estimate of the for a specific work. We're going to talk about it in details in few, but you know, this is a story point, right? Validate the customer can find cars based on the location. So now this is a story point, right? You as a QA, you're gonna do your estimation. You're gonna sit down and think about how much time it's that you would need to complete this story point. So you're gonna give your time. Like here, we have given 3 hours. So that's your estimation for everything, right? You need estimation. You need to give your estimate. Like when I give you homework, I usually ask you like how much time do you need to complete, when can you report it, things in those nature. So this is nothing but estimate, rough estimate to complete the job. Daily scrum meeting, daily so there is a terminology in Agile Scrum. There is a daily stand-up meeting, usually lasts 10 to 15 minutes or some cases 30 minutes long. This is a stand-up meeting that where the team as a team, let's say your team has 7 people or 9 people, you guys get together daily in the same spot, usually front of the burn down chart. Ideally you're going to sit here and see like what is the progress, or there would be a agile board. That's where you're going to sit, but right now everything is virtual, right? Everybody's doing the Zoom meeting. So you are going to meet as a team, talk about your statuses, and you're going to talk about your progress. You're going to talk about the issues you're facing, things in those nature. You're going to talk about what are you doing today, what are you planning to do tomorrow, that kind of stuff. That's your Scrum meeting. And there is a sprint planning meeting that starts at the very beginning when you have the product backlog defined. Then you're going to do a sprint planning meeting to do this, break this down, right? For that sprint planning meeting, you're going to break down your sprint. First sprint, what are the story point you're going to pick? Usually you're going to pick the most important story point, and you're going to finalize your sprint 1, then 2, 3, 4, and so on from this sprint planning meeting only, right? Then there is a sprint retro meeting. In sprint retro meeting, what you're going to do, you're going to talk about how your sprint went, what could you have done better as a team, how can you improve your team and workflow going forward, things in those nature. There is also sprint review meeting that I forgot to mention. In sprint review meeting, you would be reviewing your sprint. Let me just show you here. So let's look at this diagram. There is a sprint review meeting where the entire team sits. Also clients are involved there. You're going to display your work. You're going to demo your work to the client and to the team for that specific sprint. That's how it goes, right? Look at this workflow, guys. So product backlog, we talked about the entire product backlog is here, starting at the very beginning. From there, you're going to do your sprint planning, like I talked about. Then you're going to create a sprint backlog. And then the sprint that we talked about, that's nothing but the iteration sprint, right? Nothing but the iteration. It could be 1 to 3 weeks or 4 weeks. 4 weeks never happens, usually 2 weeks. 1 week never happens. Some cases 3 weeks are acceptable. So mostly standard in the industry is 2 weeks, sometimes three. So look at this under the sprint. So everybody's working there. There's daily scrum sitting here, potentially shippable product, right? Then you have, after this, after every sprint, you have a potentially shippable product, and then you review that in sprint review meeting. You show it to, you demo it to the client and the team, and then from there you have a retro meeting. That's where you talk about, like, what went well, what didn't, and what not. So in short, this is Scrum, this is Agile, this is the whole 9 yard. If you can understand this, I went very high level. I'm going to talk about it more in details, but kind of want to give you guys the idea what happens in Agile. Let's talk about it. Let's Are there any questions, guys?
Yeah. So can I just say that so based on your explanation, can we say that how to say it, the sprint, right? The backlog we have,
Mm-hmm.
that that basically we break down in iteration. You just do as you said. So the breakdown chart, that it basically rely on the sprint backlog, or like the time or hours that we get, is that rely on that, like based on the sprint backlog?
You're talking about barn down chart?
Yeah. So how the rundown chart actually created, like based on what kind of work, like is that like how much work we have to do, or is just given by somebody, or maybe the project manager
E-
or the
every,
product?
Everything is connected with one another. So what is this number represent?
Um, due to that's the days basically.
So the 0 is day and 30 is the story point, right?
Right.
So there will be tools, right? Like I mentioned, there could be Jira tool, there could be some other tool. So this is created within the tool when you define your sprint. When you define the duration of sprint, here they have 4 weeks of sprint, right? So notice, like 0 to 5 is 1 week, right? 5 to 10 is 1 week, then 10 to 15 is 1 week, and then 15 to 20 is 1 week, right? So you have 4 weeks here. That's their duration of sprint, and then they pick 30 story point, right? The expectation is from day 1 to the 20th day, they have to meet the deadline. Like, this story point should go down to 0, right? and by the time they reach to 20th day. Now this movement happens when you complete your task in the sprint, in the iteration. Like when you're doing your, there will be tool in your workplace, like they would be showing you progress, right? So you don't have to go physically and update the chart. Once you, let's say you have your story point here, right? So there will be like different statuses for your story point. So this would be like unassigned story point. When it's sitting here, then there would be status like in progress, review, completed. So when you move, let's say not started or unassigned work, when you move it to in progress, your burn down chart is going to move along with it because it's all connected. And you're going to see it when we do physical work. We have a Jira tool. I have the link?
So basically, there will be application that will monitor our work, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
We'll get there. We'll get there, and you will see that. Does anyone has link to the IT solutions Jira?
I think IT solutions is still down. Their IT solutions is still down.
Okay, so we'll create an application and let you access it, and you'll see the actual work. But understand the concept. The main thing right now for you to understand what is agile, what is sprint, what is scrum, all of these things. um, let's go a little bit more in details, guys. Agile, explaining agile is not the most easiest job.
Can I say something?
Please.
Uh, so Scrum is one of the method of Agile.
Okay.
Scrum is one of the method of Agile, or Agile is Scrum.
No, agile is the parent of Scrum is within the agile. Under construction iteration, there is a workflow process that the entire development team follows inside the
So,
construction iteration is agile.
construction iteration is Scrum.
There is a workflow within the construction iteration that everybody follows, is called agile. Within that Scrum, there are product backlogs, sprint planning meeting, daily stand-up meeting, sprint retro meeting, sprint review meeting, Scrum team, burn down chart, Scrum master, etc. So I think this is sufficient. If you can understand this and explain this, this is sufficient. And this is a structure of the agile Scrum team. Like I talked about at the beginning, one Scrum master, one business analyst, 3 developers. This could change. Developers in QA number can change, but everything else is usually one.
Okay.
You will not have 2 Scrum master. You will not have 2 business analysts. You will not have 2 product owner. These are the things usually one.
Okay.
But this number can change. So stick to this for your interview. This is this. Okay. So let me just show you the Scrum workflow. First we create the team, then we select the duration. Okay, so this is what nothing, the sprint, understanding sprint is very important. Like, we select the duration of a sprint. It could be 2 to 3 weeks. User stories are saved in the product backlog, where we pick number of user stories to work on for the first sprint, and then we estimate it. Ongoing work to complete the sprint. Presentation demo, this happens in the sprint review meeting. Principle of agile, I'm not going to get into this. This is agile workflow. I'll send you guys this document. So out of the things that I explained, what are the things that you don't understand that I could go over in details?
So I have one question. Just sprint is prioritizing. Like,
Sprint is a prioritization of work, but
okay,
sprint is nothing but an iteration. We talked about iteration, right? We always talk about in agile, we work in iteration. So what is the iteration? Like sprint, we create a iteration and say, okay, if you look at this Excel sheet, what do you see? If you look at this Excel sheet, this is the backlog. This is the this requirements are the entire application. Now in agile, would you work in entire application at once? No, right? This is the
yes,
entire application. Now if you grab this and start working, that's waterfall. You're not doing agile. Now from here, you're going to move on to sprint. You're going to
hmm
move on to sprint dashboard, and you're going to pick the story point, the requirement that you think you should start working from the beginning. So sprint one, if you're building this application, what would be your sprint work one work? What do you think? So let's say right now I have nothing but this URL, nothing else, right? I know that as an application, it should be zoho.com.
yeah,
What would be your priority?
it's like
The
the
Zoho
story
logo.
point. Yeah, no, I think what I need in the application.
The main functionality, right?
Yeah,
What are the main functionalities? Sign up functionality, sign in
yeah,
functionality, landing page. What's in the landing page, right? This kind of things you're gonna start building at first.
yeah.
You're not gonna build anything else, right? So if you look at this, right, from the beginning, there is how many story points? There is 74 story point. From that 74, you're gonna pick like 10, right? Here you have like eight story point. Like this is your first sprint. This is the highest priority work that you're going to do in your first 2 weeks of project.
So
Next to
can I put in sprint one, number one from the backlog, product backlog, number one and number 74 is sprint one. Can I
you,
do this?
you could, but you have to see the priority.
Yeah,
There would,
just I asking you.
yeah, you could, no problem. But based on the priority, there would be high priority, low priority, medium priority
Mhm.
work.
I just make sure.
Yeah, you don't have to go by the serial. You can, it goes by the priority. Okay, so when you are estimating your work, right, there is a concept called t-shirt sizing. What does that mean is like, how in t-shirts we have small, medium, large, extra large size. Similarly, your work, like some of your work is small in size, some of them are medium in size, some of them are large in size, some of them are extra large in size. It's not critical or crucial for you to understand. Not every company would follow that, but this is agile. This is this, if somebody is strictly following agile, then you must know this, right? So story point, the small story point is usually it falls under 3 hours range. The medium one is 5 hours. Large one, is there some discrepancy in these numbers? So these numbers are like, these numbers are nothing but your company your company will define this number. This is not the standard number, but your company will define this number if they're following this process strictly, right? So smaller story point would be like 3 hours or 4 hours. Medium would be 5 6 hours. Large would be 8 9 hours. Extra large would be 10 11 hours. Usually in agile, the works are divided in hours, not in days, because the idea of agile is break the task down as small as possible. Now let's say a work, let's say the first story point for you to complete is it will only take 2 hours. It's going to fall under, you will round it up and it's going to fall under smaller size. If a work, let's say next one, let's say if it will take you 6 hours to complete. So if it's going to fall under the medium bucket because it's closer to the number, medium number. uh, five is close to six. If it's higher than that, you'll round it up, it's gonna go under large bucket, so on. It's not gonna be 100% accurate, but agile tries to break it down as much as possible for you. So just understand there is a concept of t-shirt sizing in Agile, which has like small, medium, large, and extra large concept. And you can see under the small is 1 to 3, medium is 5 to 8, large is 13 to 20. But that's kind of, too much. In Agile we don't do 40 and plus numbers. That doesn't work. We break it down. If it's that kind of number, we break it down. But when you go to your work, they will define like what numbers are acceptable for the company. The other thing is very standardized in the industry. In Agile, let's say you go to work, you obviously your shift is going to be 8 to 9 hours long, usually 9 hours, right? 9 to 5. But in Agile, they count 6 hours, maximum hours of the productive hours per person per day. What I mean by that is, like, obviously you're there for 6 hours, but are you productive for 8 hours? No, you're not productive for 8 or 9 hours. You'll be lucky. They'll be lucky if you're productive for 6 hours. If you're really good, they will count 6 hours of you as productive hours for that team. If you're new, that it's going to be less. If you're not up to speed, it's going to be less. So but uh, industry standard is 6 hours, 6 productive hours, right? So any questions on estimation?
I'm sorry, you probably explained it. I probably missed out. In the t-shirt sizing, those numbers, what does it stand?
Ajubai, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
You want to take up a little bit?
Yeah. Fahad's question, I think your Fahad is referring to those numbers under the t-shirts, right?
Right.
Those numbers are the tickets, are the user stories. You see user story number 3, user story number 1. It's from the product backlog.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, so we take a product backlog and we put that in a card and we put it on the board. So what you see there is a board, and uh, usually in the board you would have like tickets, and we stick that on the board. So that number is just referring to the product backlog number.
Okay, so let's say in the product backlog, I have four, right, which is USP 002.
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
that's the one I just put it there.
Yeah, yeah. You take that and you put it on the board. And this display, the picture that you're seeing, it's from a different project. Depending on your project, you're gonna work a little differently, but usually the system is you work on a board. In Jira, there is a board, and it's called like a Kanban board or Scrum board, where we drag that ticket from working, not assigned, to in progress, and done, complete. So the process is, you grab that ticket and you move it to in progress. When you're done working, you move it to completed, and that's it. That's how a sprint is completed.
Ajubai, can we
Uh,
do one thing?
Yeah.
Fahad, sorry to cut you short. Can we do one thing? I think it's going to be very good for everybody, because right now they're confused, and I would be
Yeah.
confused too.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
only way to be clear on this topic is, let's do actual work. Can Rajubai, Thamid, and Shamim individually create 3 different projects? Because Jira, like um, community version, will give you access to 10 people only.
Mm-hmm.
So can you, Rajubai, can you create a project under your email address, give
Mm-hmm.
access to your teammates,
Mm-hmm.
as well as me if possible? If not, leave me out.
Mm-hmm.
Tamid do the same, Shamim do the same. Create a project for this application, Zoho, and add your team member there. Let's create a Kanban board. Let's do the whole thing real. Show them what is Agile, how we create the board, how we create the burn down chart, how we do all of this. Let's have it there for them to see. But actual work, when we go into creating test plan, test cases, and all of that execution, they're going to be using this. They're going to be using this to do the execution and actual work. Does it make sense?
Yeah, we can
Yes.
build something out. When do you want that completed? When do you want the complete
You
project?
you tell me, like, what is your estimation for that?
Obviously, for the for the members, they're gonna have work, homework assignments, or something to occupy themselves, and we would also need time to, make that application. I'm thinking by the end of the week, we should the three main members should have an application done where the members can actually see the application. What do you think,
That would be
Shamin?
good. Like, what do you think, Shamim, Tamid? Is it possible for you to create?
We can at the end of the week maybe we can create a at least one requirement for each to work on.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So create some dummy requirement, for example, like create sign up functionality requirement, sign in functionality requirement, landing page requirement. Doesn't have to be authentic, doesn't have to be like actual and perfect version of it, just for them to see how it looks under the product backlog, sprint backlog, under the dashboard, and the in a burn down chart, so they can see like what we're talking about. Right now they're all confused, I can guarantee you.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, sure.
Okay, let's start on that would be a good start. Now, so okay, so this was estimation Rajubai was talking about. Let's cover the main part once again. Product backlog, guys. Does anybody has confusion about product backlog? What is product? That's where everything starts. Look at this. Look at this. This is where it's starting. Look at this. If you understand this workflow, you're good to go. Tell me, like, who does not understand product backlog? Or
Product backlog is actually it's just a requirement.
is it one requirement, or is it some requirement, or all the requirement?
All the it's not all of them, but the in agile, the stakeholder, they update the requirements, so it's not all of them, but whatever they start from is all in there.
All the
Then
finalized requirement, basically
yes,
all the finalized. Okay, so okay, so any confusion, guys? Was this Ashfaq or
Amzad.
Amzad? Okay, good, Amzad. Does anyone have any question on product backlog? Do we all understand what is product backlog?
Yes.
Cool. Simplifying, if I have to simplify this product backlog, if you want to compare it with waterfall, is nothing but the requirements, all the requirements, most of the requirements, or all the finalized requirements is stored in product backlog. That's it.
But remember, you're not gonna say requirements. You're gonna say user stories. Well, requirements in Agile are user stories.
Exactly. Now moving on to sprint backlog. Do we understand what is sprint backlog? This is sprint planning, but this is where you plan and then you move to sprint backlog. What is sprint backlog?
You
Sprint backlog is
basically, yeah, go ahead.
you can go ahead, brother.
So you basically break down the product backlog and like in a different iteration, like 1, 2, 3, 4. Is that what it is?
Yes, so you're breaking down the product backlog into iteration is nothing but sprint. So there could be multiple sprint, 4, 5, 6, depending on the size of your application. So that nothing but the sprint backlog actually. And do we understand sprint? What is a sprint?
Actual work construction happen.
Just the time frame.
Time frame, yeah. The duration, actual duration to complete a sprint, the work of a sprint, basically. Within that sprint, there are daily Scrum meeting. There are the Scrum team, basically. Scrum team is sitting there and working together. Okay. So and then once this is done, then we have a shippable, potential shippable product. And once we have it, then we ship it internally. Internal shipment happens, and sprint. This is the first team within the sprint review meeting. These are the first folks who are seeing that application, and we are sitting there. This, you know, you'll see developer sitting there, client, stakeholder sitting there, scrum master, business analyst, managers, everybody would be sitting there, QA, BA, dev, reviewing the work of that sprint. And then we have the retro meeting. This meeting, we talk about what went well, what didn't, how can we improve. These are the three things we talked about. Do we understand this workflow?
Yeah, the one thing, so I think you did say that sprint is a time frame. So the sprint planning was basically um
That's a meeting.
plan
That's not
basically
your
meetings,
planning.
right?
It's a meeting, yeah.
Okay.
This, so you see,
This is where you are picking the sprint backlog.
right,
Right.
right. So sprint review, you see there is a meeting at the end, sprint review. There is a meeting, sprint planning meeting. So you're planning at the beginning, you're reviewing at the end.
Okay.
Very, very, very important.
Can I show a document about those terms?
Yeah, do you want to share your screen or you want to send it?
I'm still confused with the sprint.
I'm sorry?
I'm still confused with the sprint. So sprint planning is the timing or sprint is the timing?
Sprint actually, sprint is the actual work. That's the time frame. Right here, this is the time frame. This is the iteration, but this is a meeting. This is nothing but a meeting. And this is a backlog. It's nothing but a storage. You're storing something in the backlog. But actual work happens in the sprint.
So you say sprint is the time frame, like
Sprint is the iteration. All of the work. Remember, we went over what Agile is. We explained that Agile is a iterative development methodology. So iterative is iteration, meaning making it part by part. So making that part by part, you're working inside a sprint. So everything that you work on is a sprint. So sprint is a work time that you do, usually let's say 2 weeks. So within that 2 weeks, you're gonna select your product backlog, you're gonna select the items for your sprints, and you're gonna work on that sprint. So all of that happens within 2 weeks. So all that work that you did is the sprint. And sprint is the time that you work, and sprint is, you know, is a process that you follow. Kadir, did that make sense?
You remember at the beginning of the class, I said there is a workflow process that the entire development team follows within the construction iteration is Scrum. Do you guys remember that? I just, okay, so construction iteration, what did I say? What is Scrum? Scrum is a framework within the construction iteration. In that construction iteration, there is a workflow process the entire development team follows is nothing but Scrum. Now, if you look at this, what do you see? This is a workflow, right? Within that workflow, you know, there is a product backlog, sprint planning meeting, sprint backlog. Sprint is actual work right here, the time frame and the work, 1 to 3 weeks. Then you create a potential shippable product. Then sprint review happens, and then retro meeting happens there. It's a little bit clear.
I'm still confused. Is it the work or is it the timing?
Okay, can I share share my screen? If the document is good, then I'll send it to the group.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, sprint is a little tough to understand for everybody. So please go ahead. And please, you know, ask your questions. I like that you're still asking about sprint. That's
yeah,
good.
no, that's good. If you're not clear, please continue to ask.
Yeah.
Is this document is good or enough to understand?
Yeah, you can explain it a little.
Go through it because
here is the sprint. Sprint is a time frame when Scrum team works to complete the set amount of work. Like within 2 weeks, we have to do the this amount of work. So this is called a sprint. And for the sprint backlog is a portion, we can say the portion of product backlog, and that needs to be done within a sprint.
Thank
So
you. Clear now.
yeah, so basically sprint is a time frame. So, you know, once we go through the project, once we go through the actual work, you'll have better understanding. But, you know, it's good that you're asking questions, and it's hard to explain Scrum very simply, and you have to go into detail. And once you go find out all of the fine details, you'll get a better understanding of Scrum and Agile.
Yeah, Rajabhai said it nicely. Like it's hard to explain agile. If you go to agile, understanding agile workshop or something like that, you would come back home scratching your head. You'd be like, "What just happened?" You know.
Yeah, yeah.
So I did so much digging. I did so much research to simplify this. But yet sometimes I feel like I'm not doing good enough job, especially to the fresher. If you don't have any knowledge of agile or any background in these industries, it's very tough to explain it. But once you do an actual project, it's going to be very, very clear. Okay, so any questions? Should I go over anything else, or you guys think you have clear understanding or somewhat understanding?
No, I think you explained very well. I think I kind of got hands on it, but a few
Thank you,
things,
brother.
yeah.
Thank you.
I think few thing was just like you guys said, if we have more hands-on experience on it, I think we'll get it more better. But I think it makes sense what you just explained. So thank you.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I have a question that where we should select or prioritize product backlog or sprint backlog.
Your voice is very low. Was your question?
My question was like, where should we prioritize products? What should we do right now? Is on product backlog or sprint backlog?
So your work starts from product backlog. If there is no product backlog, then you don't have a sprint backlog. Product backlog is the parent, is the umbrella. It has all the requirements, all the story point. So from here, you would pick your potential sprint story point, and you'll take it here. So your work starts from here. This is pretend this is your landing page. That's where your work starts. And if you look at this workflow, what do you see first? You see product backlog, right?
Backlog. Mhm.
That's where everything starts. Sprint planning is nothing but a meeting. When you are planning, okay, let's see this. When you have to take some story point to the sprint backlog, how are you going to take this? Are you just going to randomly come and take it? No, there is a process in place. There is going to be a team meeting. Within that team meeting, there's going to be developers, business analysts, client, and you. And that's nothing but a sprint meeting, right? That's nothing but what you see here, sprint planning. So you're going to sit as a team, and you're going to go through this story point, and then you're going to say, okay, this is the highest priority. We should build this first. This makes sense to build first. We must do this first. So this is what you talk about in sprint planning meeting. And that's what you see here, right? Sprint planning. That's where the team is sitting and doing their meeting. And then you create a sprint backlog. And what is sprint backlog? Is nothing but this. This is your sprint backlog. This is sprint one. That's your backlog. This is sprint two. That's your backlog. This is sprint three. That's your backlog. Sprint four, your backlog. So, and then actual work starts here, where it says sprint, right? So I hope I think Nishat was confused about this. Does it make sense? Like this is where your actual work starts. This is where you're doing a meeting. This is where your entire story point sitting. This is where you create your sprint backlog. Does it make sense?
Much better, clear now. I think, yeah,
I'm
kind of.
glad. Yeah, see, it's good you ask questions now. Everybody understands.
So in the sprint planning, we do the estimation and prioritization of requirements, right?
So it goes to way like if your estimation, most cases, is done within the product backlog itself, but it also depends on the company, depends on the time, what kind of time you have. If you don't do your story point sizing here, you won't be able to take it to sprint backlog because you don't know what kind of hours or what kind of time frame it will require. Like here, you see, these are the story point you're picking from your product backlog because you only have 60 hours of productive capacity, right? You see, sprint one, your capacity is 60 hours because how many? That's two QAs, right? Or two QAs, maybe somebody was on vacation, right? For a couple of days. So one person would have how many so if you have 30 hours, no, it's two QA, right? So you have two QAs, 30 hours per week, your productive hours, 30 times 2 is 60, right? That's your capacity from QA point of view. So if you did not break it down here, if you did not do your estimation here, you cannot move it to sprint backlog. So yes, to answer your question, sprint the estimation happens here first, and then you kind of take it to the sprint backlog. So guys, there is another thing, like let's say in your team you have two QA, right? So when you're doing estimation, you have to know how much, what is your capacity, right? Your capacity is like 60 hours. How you got 60 hours? 6 hours, we talked about 6 hours of productive hours that you have per day, right? And then you're working 5 days a week, so that's 30 hours and two QAs there, so that's 60. That's kind of your limit per week. But this should be 120, right? Because you have 2 weeks of work. So this should be 120. That's your productive hours per sprint. So you can only take on 120 hours of work per sprint. So this is nothing but the hours. So you can add these hours, and so these hours are showing 60 because this was off. Or you can just say like you have one QA, right? So let's say we have only one QA for the team. So you only have 60 productive hours. You can only take this much work. You cannot take any more work, right? Because you only have 60 productive hours. You cannot go more than that. Does it make sense? Here you're seeing all the hours. This is your estimation. You have given estimation. QA estimation in hours. Dev, we are not doing it because we are not dev. QA estimation. So this is what happens. There is another meeting, product backlog grooming meetings. You don't really need to know it now, but good to know. What they do is they do the estimation in product backlog grooming meetings. They're going through each and every product and they do the estimation. Let me show you something. Let me show you my actual work. Jira. Let's see. Don't tell anyone that I was showing you my work. This is my application. This is the dashboard. This is the backlog. This is the product backlog. You see all the story point here. We have, I think, 144 story point. And roadmap. Let's go to roadmap. Yeah, so within this roadmap, we have epic and story point. The first one is the epic, and then below you have the story point. We do not have an active sprint created yet. So once we have active sprint created, you're going to see these different statuses: to do, in progress, ready to QA, QA, UAT done. So when you move these tickets, right, you're going to have like tickets sitting here, like hundreds of tickets. You see it's saying start to sprint in the backlog. We don't have anything yet. Our project did not physically start yet. So once we do this, right, you're going to see your dashboard. Under the report, you're going to see dashboard has the movement. Right now there is nothing there. My application name is Smart IO. Let me see if there is another project, somebody else's project that I can show you. Abound. You see, these guys have a Kanban board created. That's where they have different tickets. This is there are tickets sitting on the new status, ready for review, in progress, done. This is configurable. Like every project is working differently. You can see it here. My project has different statuses. They did not create any dashboard chart. I don't want to create chart under them. Have something here. Um, Cumulative workflow diagram. So, nah, this is too broad. Not a good example. Anyway, let me create my, once I'm there, I'm going to show it to you once I create my project. Project is created, but it's not organized yet because we're still in iteration -1. And that's what it is. Epic burn down release. Let's see release burn down. Nothing is created. Anyway, um, I'm done actually. If you guys want to ask questions or Rajubai or something.
Did you make that sprint backlog? I mean the board.
No, 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 no. We are doing like product backlog grooming meeting. We have like
Okay.
meetings. We sit. We have this group. I'm gonna show you. So my project is Smart IO. So we have this team. All of us. We sit together and we have meetings. She is the organizer. She is the business analyst. So she leads the call, and then all of us are in there. These guys are architect. This guy's product owner, and we have like I'm there, and there's like others as well. So we have like meetings daily. We go over grooming and everything. Anyway, okay. Questions, guys?
One last question. I mean, so I think Rajabai was explaining me earlier. I just wanted to get kind of clear view on like tickets. So as Rajabai explained to me earlier that from one, let's say the small T-shirt sizing,